What's up, guys? Texas Platinum is back this week with a new video. We're going to be talking Sark's new staff. We got a new DC now, so we've been waiting around just like the rest of y'all, and we're going to hop right into it. First off, though, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. If you haven't noticed, we just hit the 1,000 subscriber plateau. Big accomplishment for all of us here at Texas Platinum. We've been looking forward to this day for a while, so monetization is on the horizon, and hopefully more content, better content, and maybe new changes to come. We're exciting things are happening, both with us and this Texas football team. So good days ahead. So again, subscribe if you haven't already. Now's the time to hop on board. Give us a like, leave us a comment per usual. We love to engage with y'all. And let's hop right into the staff. So I'm going to hand it off to Matt Myers, and we're going to just go through the staff kind of one by one. Once that's over, since we didn't do a video last week, we'll talk a little bit about the national title game while Sark OC'd at Alabama, as well as his press conference, giving our impressions of that. But again, that was kind of old, so we'll save that for the end. Right now, we're just going to focus on staff. And, hop right into it. So lead it off, Myers.
Yeah, so Texas and Sarkisian finally made the hire on the defensive coordinator. At the end, it was getting kind of ugly. It was like it's starting to look bad. We don't have a DC. It's been 17 days, and it breaks like a couple nights ago, like at 11 p.m. Of course, that this guy Pete Kwiatkowski's the leader in the clubhouse to be Texas's defensive coordinator. And I texted my buddy immediately. He was a Washington fan, and the first thing I asked him was, who did Texas just hire, and should I be excited? And I'm going to read it to you. I'll bleep out the cuss words, but the best DC in the country. I'm so effing pissed, dude. He's been the second most important person in turning around Washington football in the last 5 years. Y'all just made an amazing hire. F me. F. Life has no meaning.
Life has no meaning.
Yeah, so this Pete Kwiatkowski is a great defensive coordinator who's really just been like an establishment out in the West Coast. That's kind of why we don't hear about him too much, because he's just been like steady. And and the Pac-12, they all know about him, but we don't watch the Pac-12 too much. But I mean, just look at the numbers. His defensive efficiency rating has been amazing the last really 10 years, but the last 5 years at Washington, they haven't fielded a defense worse than like the 24th most efficient defense in the country. I mean, this year they take a step back, but they played 5 games, so it's not a full sample size. But I'll just go with the two big stats that stood out to me with this hire was how Coach K did against Mike Leach and the air raid. You know how prolific that offense is and hard to stop it is. So every year it seems like he held them under 17 points, which is incredible. Like that doesn't happen very often. So that's a promising sign, because in the Big 12, with Lincoln Riley offenses and offenses like that, I mean, it's going to be a lot of passing offenses, and Coach K seems to definitely know how to match up with those, with the one high safety, and he knows how to slow them down, which is really hard to do in today's college football. So that was very impressive, the first thing that I noticed. The second thing that I noticed was the draft picks. Texas has been, knocked a lot recently, the last 5 to 10 years, over our lack of draft picks that we've produced. And Coach K alone has produced 23 defensive draft picks since 2011. For reference, Texas has produced 26 as a team in that same time frame. So NFL production is going to definitely take a step forward, NFL draft output, and that's what we need at Texas desperately. So, I mean, it checks all the boxes in terms of NFL. Stats are good. He's not a great recruiter, but he doesn't really need to be, because, I mean, he'll get 3 stars and 2 stars at Washington, turn them into like all pro players, first rounders, second rounders. So I think with Texas talent could be something really special. And I would rank him above Pete Golding and Zach Arnett, right below Barry Odom and Will Muschamp in terms of hires. But yeah, I think it was a great hire. And I can't wait to see what he does paired with the Sark offense. It's going to be really fun to see.
Yeah, I was mentioning to you earlier, Myers, that when in our group text when we found out about the hire, we were all just kind of like, who the hell is this guy? We were actually a little bit upset because it's like, oh, some guy from Washington, that we haven't even heard of. But yeah, definitely upon researching him, definitely brings a lot of excitement knowing that we're getting I almost kind of heard that he's a bit of a comparison to Sark, actually, where it's like a very innovative, good play caller just on the defensive side of the ball instead of the offensive side. Sark himself, when obviously looking at all these different defensive coordinators and trying to find the right match, he seemed to what he really liked in Coach K is just how, when he was a coach back at USC, this guy gave him a lot of fits. So I found it interesting that he kind of, and he almost kind of forgot about it for a while, but that Sarkisian comes from the West Coast. He's a West Coast coach. So it was actually kind of surprising. And honestly, I forgot that, hey, why, he's probably looking at West Coast coaches too to hire to his staff versus just all Alabama SEC guys. I was hoping for Golding, just more so just for the optics, just because it felt really good to continue to poach from Alabama. I feel like that would be like the nail in the coffin. That would just feel really good. But Coach K seems to bring a lot to the table too. Obviously, as Myers said, stopping the air raid is definitely something that we need to do often in the Big 12. You see a lot of defensive coordinators with maybe not like severe, like great clout come to Texas in the past few years, but you see a lot of pretty good defensive coordinators that come in and struggle, and rightfully so. The Big 12 is, the most prolific offensive league in college football. So yeah, a lot of people struggle easily. So to find a coordinator that knows how to stop it and has been around it and dealt with it, I think is of the utmost importance. And then also just kind of his different formations and defensive philosophies. He likes to, like Sark, in a way, likes to focus on players versus plays. So he's much about creating matchups with his defenses, seeing a bunch of kind of weird formations, like maybe like two defensive linemen on the line at a time with like a whole array of safeties. Not to give us bad flashbacks, but maybe like a Todd Orlando Cowboy type package. But hopefully, right? No, don't do that. So hopefully a little bit smarter used, but that same idea of really looking at these players and seeing what kind of matchups we get. So I'm excited to see obviously Overshown's kind of our star defensive player. So I'm curious how he'll utilize him and move him around on the field. We got probably for like once in a while, we seem to have a really good defensive line. So I'm very curious to see how he uses those guys, because they're all, pretty big guys. And I feel like the 4-3 was working pretty well for them. So I'm curious how they move Coburn around and all the rest of them. So, yeah, interesting hire. Madrid, do you have any commentary on Coach K?
Yeah, I think I said most of it, how he matches up with the air raid nicely and how that's a nice counter to OU. Two things really. First is I like to judge. I like to judge fans' reactions of teams that you take their coaches from a lot. And Matt had a firsthand encounter, but just going through Twitter and all the Washington fans mourning the loss of him. I mean, it's not in a sense like rub it in their face, but you got someone good when you're really sad to see the person go. So that in itself is a good sign. And secondly, I think just this solidifies recruiting in a lot of ways. Sark may not have the closest ties to Texas, more of a West Coast guy, but he brought in guys like Banks and Davis and all them that still have ties to Texas and the South. So with the hire of Kwiatkowski, it kind of just solidifies that West Coast pipeline too. So that makes me feel very comfortable going forward with recruiting in the future. So yeah, I think this is really underrated part of the hire for sure.
Nationwide coaching staff at this
everywhere,
point, which is what you need in the modern college football league. Is you got to be able to recruit everywhere, especially when Texas has become such a battleground for
absolutely
every all these programs. Anything else on Kwiatkowski? Myers, you got anything, or should we move on to the rest of the staff?
Yeah, I'll add a couple things. That's a good point on building that West Coast pipeline as strong as you can. I think look for the last hire to probably be a plus recruiter with West Coast ties. I'm hearing the name Johnny Nansen, however it's pronounced. He's a West Coast guy with, a plus recruiter. Someone like that would be, fit well with this defensive staff, just because, now is the time to build that. I mean, we're the furthest east, or the closest east powerhouse program of all the West Coast schools. Like, we are like the natural beacon to go to if you want to, go away but not too far. Like C. Bijan, Gabriel Floyd, Jake Smith, guys like that. I know some of them are from Arizona, but I consider it all LA area.
It's all West Coast relative Pac-12 territory.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think with Sark, he's got the modern day and the Cali pipeline, and then if you get a guy like Tosh DePoy or someone on there, you can kind of just solidify that. And it's open season out there right now. I mean, USC's down. The Pac-12 looks worse every single year. People are fleeing it, it seems like. So, I mean, Coach K is like a testament to, he's like a lifer there, and he just left and he was candid about it in the interview today. He said the Pac-12, it's at a disadvantage, and it sucks. Like, they just don't have the backing financially, or just like the football support in general is just not strong out there. And I mean, you'll see it with like recruits going to the South and coaches going to the South now too. So yeah, I think that's a good point that Madrid brought up. And then also, whenever you think of Washington football over the last 5 years, you think of the death row dogs for their defense. And that's kind of, Coach K is kind of like one of the founders of that. He really brought that. I don't know if it was there before him, but he definitely like helped revitalize it if it wasn't before him. So just go on YouTube and type in Death Row Dogs football, and you'll see a bunch of, Washington defense highlights just lighting people up. And they play really, they're just known for playing stout defense consistently. So hopefully he can be a consistent, piece here at Texas. And he doesn't really have head coaching aspirations from what I know. So maybe he can be here for the next 5 to 10 years with Sark, which would be awesome. Build that continuity that we've been missing since Mac. So I'm excited, man. I think it's a great hire. It was unexpected. I didn't do my homework on it, but once I did, it was just like, wow, this is a home run hire. So very excited about the defense, and it'll be interesting to see who the last guy is. I do think we need a really good recruiter now, just to round out that staff. Defensively, we need one more good recruiter, and then it'll be a A-plus, staff hire. That's how I grade the whole staff.
Nice.
Agreed. Should we continue with defensive staff, or should we move over to offense?
Let's finish off the defensive staff. Just kind of go, down the line real quick. Let's start off with Bo Davis at the top. Madrid was talking about him earlier. That's a great hire by Steve Sarkisian. If you're not going to keep Oscar Giles, this guy who I really liked and I thought was a really underrated recruiter, I think Bo Davis is probably, as good as it can be, as good as it gets. I mean, he's like a rainmaker recruiter, and he just
maybe a little too much, but he learned his lesson.
Yeah, but that's what we need at Texas.
We need a bag man.
Go give me the man that'll make it hard to say no.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's got he's got the ties to the South, and he just produces. He's got NFL experience, and he's produced a lot of draft picks, really mean defensive lines. Just go ask Alabama. When did they have their best D lines of the Saban dynasty? It was all when Bo Davis was there. That's what all their fans will say. So, and he was like kind of a really big piece in Malcolm Brown and Hashawn Ridgeway, taking that step, becoming NFL, getting drafted. So I think Bo Davis is a great hire, and I can't complain about that one at all. Sticking with the defense, Blake Gideon. That's kind of I don't know about that. We'll see how that goes.
It's kind of like we need a special teams coach, or we need a safeties coach, and guys from Texas. I mean, we'll see. Supposedly he's been killing it, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, Sark wasn't hesitant to hire.
I know, it was pretty fast.
I mean, he was like a early on hire, so I take that as a good sign that Sark likes what he's doing a lot. I mean, we don't watch a lot of Ole Miss football.
Yeah,
so I don't really know, but it's cool having a legacy coach. If anything, even
Mhm.
though his legacy is good, but it's not fantastic either for a reason that a lot of Texas fans
I
don't
cannot run it,
to
man.
mention. But yeah, so up and coming guy. We'll see what happens with him and how he progresses. But and knows the state. I mean that's another key point is knows the state, probably close with high school programs. Obviously been a player here, so he can use that in terms of recruiting. And yeah, just I think it's a good hire. Of course, we'll have to see though, how he does, being that he's definitely kind of a younger coach. But Sark seems to have faith in him, so I take that as a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, he's a really good special teams coach. That's kind of a fact. I mean, he was the special teams coach of the year this year, or maybe 2 years ago at Houston. So he definitely has, some pedigree there. And combined with Jeff Banks, who also was special teams coach of the year recently.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was this year or the year before. We definitely have no excuse not to have like a elite special teams unit every year. So, I mean, special teams, the box is definitely checked there. And if Gideon can show that he can, coach safeties at a high level at this early on in his career, then I think it's a great hire because, it's always great to have at least one legacy on staff that's been there, especially that was there when we were winning Big 12 titles, playing in the Natties, kind of like Michael Huff in that same role. So we'll see how he does. I mean, if he can coach safeties, then I think it's a great hire. I'm sure he can recruit, man. He's a really captivating guy. He's a guy that when he was at Texas, I remember him, like, everybody talked about how great of a leader he was. He was a coach on the field. He started as a true freshman, as a 2-star on that 2018 team. I think he's a true freshman. So that just kind of shows how cerebral he is and how much of a leader he is. So I think he'll be a great hire one day. I just think it may have been too soon to get him, but we'll see. I mean, Sark knows better than I do. So, yeah. And then also on the coach in the secondary, the pass game coordinator, Terry Joseph. He comes over from Notre Dame, which is – I'm not sure if him and Sark are linked in any ways. I don't know if they've ever coached together.
He was at A&M.
Kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, he was at A&M, but I don't know if he was ever with Sark.
Probably not Sark, but I'm guessing he was with Banks in that because Banks was over at A&M for a while too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, Sark must have saw what he did at Notre Dame in the Rose Bowl, and he must have liked what he saw there. I mean, Terry Joseph's a guy that I think people are just kind of disappointed in because we were hearing the names like Corey Raymond and the Tennessee defensive backs coach or defensive coordinator. We were hearing names like that, and we were all excited. Carl Scott from Alabama. But I think Terry Joseph's a good hire. I mean, it's hard to tell at this point. I mean, he's a solid recruiter. He's a plus recruiter. He's not a rainmaker or anything like that. But, I mean, he's landed guys like Speedy Noyle, and he knows the state pretty well, and Louisiana. He's got some good ties there. So, I mean, I can't complain about that. I do admit that the defensive backs are the weak link of the staff. That's pretty clear right now. But, I mean, it also could end up working out really well. So who knows? But, yeah, it kind of runs with the defensive staff. And I'll grade it as a B+. And, if we get like a Toss Dupoy type to fill it out, it would jump it up to like an A- on the defensive side. But I think the staff's all about the offense, honestly. I think the offensive staff is just like perfection, honestly. So that'll be fun to see.
Yeah, I'll let Kwiatkowski handle that side of the ball. I feel like he's a veteran enough to handle it. Like as you said, it's all about the offense with this staff for sure.
All right, offensively, that's where the fun starts. And I mean, obviously, off the top, Steve Sarkisian, probably the best offensive mind in college football right now. Besides, Lincoln Riley, of course, we'll give him the nod. But I don't know, it might be getting close one of these days. We'll see. Sarkisian might pass him up, but I mean, the first hire that really just like opened your eyes, like, dang, this guy's assembling a good staff, was just right out the gate, hiring Kyle Flood to, be the offensive line coach is such a massive upgrade over Herb Hand. It's like not even funny.
Yeah, man.
I mean, he's a former head coach at Rutgers, which is awesome. And he's just a really good recruiter, obviously. I mean, J.C. Latham, 5-star, top 5 kid in the nation, just committed to him at Bama. And then the Brocker Myers, obviously. I know it's at Bama, but still, he's a good recruiter regardless, and that's a known fact.
We'll get them, yeah.
And just the development, man. Look at all these guys. I know this O-line, it's Alabama always, that's going to be there. But they won the Joe Moore Award for, like, the best offensive line in the country, which is just, like, I mean, it's hard to get better than that as a coach. And he's just, the sky's the limit for him. I do wonder, is he going to get another head coaching job and jump at that?
Yeah.
Like, how long can we keep him here? Because, he's got the NFL experience. He's got head coaching experience. So if we can keep him for 2 years, get some 5-stars in here, I think that's a win. So 2 years with him is what I'm hoping for. And then, cream up a prodigy under him or make another good hire. But, yeah, Kyle Flood definitely checks all the boxes. That's exactly what we needed after Herban. Just, and he's already off and running. He's offering pretty much every 5-star offensive lineman in the country. And I would imagine that he's going to land guys like Devin Campbell in state, 5-star offensive lineman like that. So really excited to see what he can do, man. It's going to be awesome. Best coach offensive line we've had in years. So, yeah, Kyle Flood definitely checks the boxes. A.J. Milwee is kind of an up-and-comer. He's definitely going to be one of those guys that's a Sark tree guy. We'll see where he ends up in 10, 15 years. But Sark had to bring someone on that he could trust. And, just like if he had to miss practice or be with a certain player group during practice, if he had to work with the defense during practice, he could have a guy that like knows his offense and, knows, his philosophies and could call the game for him from the sky if he had to, from the press box. And that's A.J. Milwee. I mean, he had the job at Arkansas State as offensive coordinator for like a week, and then he ended up turning it down and coming to Texas with Sark as a QB coach. So definitely they're attached to the hip there. It's definitely a Sark guy. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I'm not sure if he's a great recruiter, but he's a football nerd, and he's a kind of a mad scientist type. So we'll see with him. I mean, he's kind of the I would say the ugly duckling in terms of recruiting, but I mean he's got a good football mind. So
he's young. He can become a good recruiter. It just takes time sometimes.
Yeah,
exactly. It's kind of like the Gideon for the offense. So we'll see what he can do. And I mean, it's good to have someone that aligns with Sark so nicely. This is like his right hand man. Running backs coach Stan Drayton, great to keep him. I mean, he's one of the few hires that Herman made that you're like, yes, this is a home run hire. And I mean, he just develops running backs really well. I mean, look at Roshan, Bijan. I mean, Keontae did really well here when he was healthy. And he can recruit really well. I mean, he brought in the number 1 running back in the nation last class. And this class hopefully will close with LJ Johnson or Kamar Wheaton. So, yeah, I mean, that was huge keeping him on staff because he's kind of the reason that Bijan's here, like we've been saying. So it's good to keep Bijan happy and keep that, continuity there. And then the wide receivers coach, that's kind of the interesting one, seeing Andre Coleman after all the hype we heard about, Dennis Simmons from Oklahoma and, Holloman Wiggins from Alabama, all these big names.
Yeah.
And then we end up just keeping Andre Coleman, who we thought of as kind of as a weak link on the staff offensively last season. But as you dig into it more, it kind of makes sense because it's come out now that Herman really handcuffed a lot of these guys, especially Andre Coleman in the recruiting.
I'm sure he had his hand all over the offense like that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he would micromanage him. He wouldn't let him offer who he wanted to offer. He would only want the big body receivers, and he would just hurt relationships because Herman, is kind of a control freak like that. So it'll be cool to see what Andre Coleman does with less handcuffs on him. And I mean, for people that I know that know Andre Coleman, people that work in the recruiting department, they all have amazing things to say about Coleman. They say he's probably the nicest guy you'll ever meet, and he's a pretty captivating guy. I mean, he helped produce Tyler Lockett at Kansas State, so I do think he can recruit well. I think it's just a matter of him, getting the right offensive system in place and having the freedom to go out and build those connections because he never really had the opportunity to recruit in person either at Texas, so that hurts a little bit. But I mean, he landed Armani Winfield real quick. Largely because of Sark, but still he helped land that. And I mean, Evan Stewart, guys like that, he has the relationships in place. So we'll see how that goes. But I think it can work out really well. I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's a receivers coach. So I don't think it matters too much, but I mean, I would grade it as like a B-.
Yeah.
And then tight ends coach is like the holy grail, Jeff Banks. Absolutely needed to happen because this staff, you had to have that one Texas guy that could, come into the state and have all the connections and go into the big high schools and, win guys over. And Jeff Banks is that guy. He was the lead recruiter for Texas while at Alabama, and he came in here and took a bunch of our best players. And he's been at A&M before. He's he definitely knows the state, and he has West Coast ties. So it's kind of like a match made in heaven in terms from what we're trying to do with our staff. We're trying to lock down Texas and cherry pick out West. So I think Jeff Banks is definitely, we're paying him $1 million to come in here and coach tight ends, which is kind of ridiculous.
That's not what he's.
And special teams.
Yeah, over $1 million, I think,
He's
actually.
gonna have to do something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's good to see Texas opening the checkbook for tight ends coaches, stuff like that.
There's a reason we called this podcast Texas Platinum in the beginning because when we were brainstorming, like what do you think about when you think of Texas? And then one of the main things we landed on was money. So platinum being the highest form of that is it feels good that we're finally using all of it. So the name is even more vindicated now.
Absolutely, yes. So.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Banks, that's huge. Like, I'm so glad that happened because there was a moment when it looked like he wasn't going to come, and then Sark and CDC were like, "No, you're coming, boy. We're paying you whatever you need," and we did that. So, can't wait to see him hit the recruiting trail hard. He's got a lot of relationships with a lot of highly ranked dudes all throughout the country and in Texas. So, let's see how that goes with Jeff Banks. But yeah, overall, the staff is honestly the best staff we've had in years since Mac Brown. And it's just so exciting to see where we're going to be headed with them because, I was thinking about the Arkansas Razorbacks last year because they were horrible. But then they went out and hired Barry Odom to coach their defense and Kendall Browse to coach their offense. And as soon as they made those hires, I was like, wow, they're really going to be improved next year regardless of who's on the roster. That's just wholesale upgrades in terms of coordinators. And that's what we have at Texas this year. I truly believe that. Next year we're going to have wholesale upgrades and the position coaches, but especially the coordinators. I mean, Chris Ash was a good defensive coordinator, but I believe Coach K is better. I mean, he's got a better resume, and Sark is clearly a better coordinator than Mike Yurcich or Tom Herman. So definitely upgraded on the staff. That's what we needed to do. We need to get the recruiting going, but I mean, I can't complain at this moment, man. I'm excited to see how it gets going here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and if you're kind of like me, and you don't want to fall into the trap of like new coach, like get your hopes up. I did a little comparison to Herman's staff coming in, and real briefly, basically out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so out of like the 9 coaches that you can hire, all of them came like 7 of them came from Houston and followed Tom Herman there. And I think back then we were so ready to get rid of that we didn't even cross our mind, the staff. It was just like new guy, like let's go. But this time you take a step back, you just look at like who Herman brought in and like who just didn't last, like Tim Beck, demoted and fired, Drew Maringer, demoted and fired, Derek Warheim, demoted and fired, Kobe Meeks, demoted and fired, and then the whole defense, like the only ones that lasted all the way to the end were, I guess, Todd, but I mean that was like the last year, and then Oscar Giles and Craig Navarre and Jason Washer, like the guys that just didn't make it through the whole way. And that's not to say that that every coach, every assistant he brings in isn't gonna last, but they won't. Like, there's a good chance that they won't get fired. They may just go find another job. So that's a big thing for me. I know there's a lot of Texas fans out there who are still iffy, but I think this is the real reason why you should be excited, is because Sark isn't gonna have to do it all on his own like Herman was gonna have to do. He has a staff and infrastructure here that is just head and shoulders above anything we've had in like 10, 15 years, and that's the real reason you should be excited.
Yeah, and that's what we called for when Sark made this hire. Is we were so excited. Well, a big part of the excitement of getting a coach that's been in coaching for a while, maybe not the head coaching position, but has been all around the country, is that we knew that he could pull in a staff because of his notoriety and the relationships he's made both in the SEC and in the Pac-12. We knew that he could pull he had a very wide net of coaches that he could pull from. And also because he was a coordinator for so long, he didn't have that baggage of having to kind of throw his guys a bone. Yeah, being a head coach at one place and moving to the new place. So that was big. What I'm most curious about is on the offensive side of the ball, just how him, Flood, and Milwee are going to like split up duties. Because I don't know about y'all, but that's a little confusing to me. I mean, I'm not concerned about it. I trust that they have a system down, but I've never heard of of an offensive line coach be an offensive coordinator. That just seems very foreign to me. And then having the QB coach be like the QB coach eye in the sky. That's pretty typical and standard. But yeah, with Sark calling plays, and then you have another guy that's a coordinator, but that's not the guy in the booth who's the quarter. You get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, no. Why not just name yourself Sark OC, basically, right?
No, I mean that, but also just I'm confused how the tandem's going to work, and I'm sure we're going to learn more as this happens and as the season continues and such. Myers, any quick thoughts on that, on how the three work together and feed off each other?
Yeah, I think he had to give Kyle Flood the offensive coordinator title and a raise to come to Texas, because he's not going to come to like it's a
I thought it was like a money thing, right?
he's not going to take a step back for the same job. I mean, let's be honest. Alabama's a step up from Texas right now, and if he's going to go from offensive line coach at Bama to offensive line coach at Texas, that's not really like good career advancement. I mean, he could be making another couple $1,000, $100,000 a year, but I think you need to give him that title so he can also get like that resume, offensive coordinator. He's not going to be calling plays. He's going to be an offensive line coach. He'll have –
So it's just a title is what you're saying.
Yeah, they do that a lot. Yeah, they use titles. I mean, yeah, titles are very important for assistant coaches. A lot of them want to climb that ladder back up to head coach or something like that. So
just kind of
O-line coach to offensive coordinator, it just helps get them that, career advancement, one step forward.
So it'll be just kind of Sark and Milwee, with Milwee being the guy in the booth and then Sark calling the plays.
That's how I imagine it. I mean, I'm sure he'll have his hand in the game planning and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but he won't be – I don't think he'll be, like, really heavily involved in play calling and, like, scripting plays, like, before games and stuff.
Interesting. Okay.
Nice.
Cool.
I'm excited.
Well, that answers my question on that part then. But, yeah, overall exciting staff. Quick grades from y'all. If y'all had to, let's just say defense and offense. We'll start with Madrid. Give it a grade.
Offense, I give it an A-, and then defense like a B, solid B. Because we still don't have a linebackers coach.
Myers.
Yeah, I'll give the offense a straight A, not an A+. I would rather have seen like a rainmaker at wide receiver coach.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the 1 weak link there. And then defense, like I said, I think I said a B-. But if they do get a rainmaker or just a really good linebacker coach or defensive ends coach here in the next couple days, I could definitely bump it up to A- territory, B+ territory. Either way, this is all compared to Herman's like D- staff. So either way, we're definitely making moves. We're definitely upgrading. So yeah, we're nitpicking here, but overall, it's just such a giant step forward.
Agreed. Yeah, I got to say similar grades for me. I give it offense probably A-, probably more A-, just because of, like you said, the wide receiver coach, and that it could have been a tad better, but it's still great. And then defense, I'll give it a solid, either a B or B-, depending on, B or B+ probably, depending on what this linebacker hire ends up being, assuming that'll be linebackers.
Nice.
Right. And I do want to differentiate. I think the defensive coordinator hire alone is an A+ hire, A-, A+, that range. But the secondary coaches are what kind of concerns me, and it kind of brings the grade down there. But yeah, we'll see. It's not finalized yet, so we'll see how it all shakes out.
All right, so that brings us to the next part of the video. We're going to talk a bit about the national title game that happened last week, as well as the Sark press conference that all of Texas Nation was really looking forward to, and got a lot of talking notes out of it. So first off, championship game. We're going to keep it pretty quick and short. Madrid. How about you give me just your quick impressions about the game, what you saw, what you liked, more specifically out of the play calling that Sark did.
Yeah. I've always been a big advocate of getting your playmakers in space, and I feel like we never really turned to that in our past offenses. Like,
No.
if you have a stud running back or a stud hybrid or something, why not try every play? Obviously not every play, but most plays to get them the ball in space so they can do their thing. Especially in college when like better athletes just overcome other athletes because they're faster and stronger. So like, just use those guys to their potential. And look, you got Devontae Smith. Granted, Devontae Smith is a Heisman winner, right? So he was going to get his regardless. But the plays that were drawn up for him to get the ball, he was nearest guy was always like 10 yards from him. Like he was gonna make moves and get into space. And I think Trevor, you sent it the video of Sark explaining like the most underrated pass catcher or whatever is the running back, and that's something I love, because what are you gonna do when you can account for everyone except for the guy swinging outside the backfield from the backfield, like catching a pass and getting at minimum like 5 yards. Like that's a play in itself right there. But like that's something we hardly saw from our offense. So just the fact that he knows how to get his best players involved, and he knows who his best players are, is something that we should be very excited about. We saw Bijan's reaction. One guy I'm excited about getting the ball more is Jordan Whittington. He's going to be – I know he's going to be a big part of the offense. Jake Smith's going to prosper. He knows who the best players are. He's going to play the best players, and he's going to get them in space. So that's the main thing I'm really excited about and that I saw, too, from the championship game. And congratulations to him. He deserves it.
Thoughts on the game, Myers?
Yeah, I mean, Madrid was right on it. You know, the first thing that stood out was definitely him, scheming up Devontae Smith to be covered by tough Borland, like linebackers. Just it was incredible. I mean, the one Devontae Smith play where he just completely faked out the entire defense and had like reverse wheel route, that was super good. He put on a show, and the recruits and the players really took notice. So, I mean, it's just super, refreshing to see. He was always one step ahead of Kerry Coombs and that Ohio State defense. I mean, Greg McElroy went and said that offensive, performance and play calling should have been put in the Smithsonian. I mean, it was awesome to watch. So, I mean, and it paid dividends. I mean, recruits and we got a commit out of it, like at halftime, we got a commit out of it. So, he definitely just showed, his ability. And I kind of saw that coming, though. I mean, that's kind of who he's been the last 2 years at Bama. So, it's kind of more the same. And it was just cool to see him do it against talent that is equal to Alabama's talent. Because Ohio State has a bunch of 5 stars and 4 stars, just like Alabama, and they still just looked way better than them, just schemed up, outcoached them. So, yeah, it was very exciting to see, and I can't wait to see it at Texas.
Yeah, for me, what stood out, stuff that y'all haven't mentioned yet, one was, and I guess you kind of mentioned this, Myers, but I'll add to it, was just how well that Sark came out and called these plays and how prepared he was, despite interviewing for a Texas job and having to manage recruiting and kind of putting together a staff on top of preparing for Ohio State in the national title game. I don't know if y'all remember, but when Tom Herman was kind of being pursued and everything and interviewed for the Texas job, look at what happened with him. That week, Tom Herman was denying that he was being interviewed by Texas in the first place. Houston, I think they lost to Memphis or something. It was a very key game that was on the schedule that they just laid an egg on. At that point, he's like, okay, yeah, I do have the Texas job. I'm not even going to coach in the bowl game or anything like that. And then they lost another game. So that just shows you nothing. Well, a little bit against Tom Herman, but it shows you more so how much of a professional that Sark is. And I mean, Tom was a young guy, and a lot of people say that Sark is a young guy too, and he is by age, but he clearly has that mental maturity that he's gathered over the years through all of his different journeys and different positions, both in college and the NFL, and things don't shake him. And I think that was an excellent first test to be like, hey, we're gonna give you like the biggest job you've ever gotten like the week before the biggest game of your career, and you need to hit a double whammy here. You need to both like win the championship, show your colors, and then as soon as that's done, you're the Texas coach.
Yeah.
And he balanced it phenomenally, like exceptionally well. And to me, that was a great test. That wasn't even really the game so much. And then the other thing with the game is after Smith got hurt, and we started to see, Alabama kind of slowed down a bit on offense, and Ohio State was kind of not surging, but the game was getting a little bit more close. Alabama was still up by 2 touchdowns, but Ohio State definitely could have closed the gap and made this into a game. But we saw a complete offensive shift. With Smith out, Sark very easily transitioned the offensive focus of the ball from the receiving core to the running backs. Najee Harris started running the ball. That offensive line was creating massive holes in the run game. And to me, that was another great sign that Coach Sark is able to adjust on the fly and see from half to half what the Ohio State defense is giving him, and more importantly, what his offense is looking at the time. Because I feel like with with Herman's coaching staff for the past while, and probably even with Charlie's too, but it's been so long, I never felt like we really made good in-game adjustments. We'd like to do the same thing over and over and over again, even if it wasn't working. And I know that frustrated us amongst probably all Texas fans at this point. So yeah, that was another big thing, was just seeing how effortlessly he was able to transition and shift and get all his talented players the ball, because Najee Harris is a hell of a back, and Mac Jones was wobbling a little bit too because he was a little bit banged up, but it was a very balanced attack, even though Devonta Smith was kind of the highlight, obviously, the championship game. It was all about balance. So that's what excited me the most with the championship. That, and just how well Sark just managed being able to handle the whole situation so flawlessly is something that hopefully that was just the tip of the iceberg that we're going to see with Sarkisian.
Hopefully.
Any other quick thoughts on the championship, or should we transition over to the press conference?
No, it was awesome, but let's get into the press conference now.
Sweet. So press conference was the following day after the championship game. Like, what a whirlwind for Sark. I almost kind of feel bad. I bet he got like no sleep that night. But what I noticed, initial thoughts just from the press conference, is this dude is amped. Like he's got a lot of energy. I texted y'all this, and y'all were a little, I think, confused. So let me clarify my point. But he reminds me of like a men's basketball coach, and y'all were like, what does that even mean? To me, like, so obviously all of us grew up in Texas. To me, like, the typical Texas football coach is kind of like a very macho, deep voice, gruff type hard-nosed football coach. Even the offensive ones are still like kind of macho and masculine and, real tough, and like Tom Herman, deep voice, strong presence type guy. Sark to me gives a really high energy, youthful, sociable type of guy, and compared to like the basketball coaches that I was around growing up, that was a lot more similar. Basketball coaches are high energy, they're fast talking, they're on it, and that's what I was getting from Sark, is that really fast talking, high energy guy. And Myers corrected me and was like, no, that's the Cali football coach way. And I haven't been around Cali football coaches, so I won't know. But I like that because it's a new energy that we hadn't gotten really. He extremely likable guy. Just comes across so genuine. I think that's the one word that a lot of people have described Sark as, having been through demons and recovered and just gone on like a humbling journey. I think is kind of what's added to it, and he's just good with the press and stuff. Not that he's similar to Mac Brown, and that Mac is obviously was way older and kind of was like a grandpa type figure, while Sark is like the cool big brother, but still like a very great calming media presence, is what I gathered. Madrid, let me hear your thoughts on.
I think he has a really great story personally. There's a bunch of I remember I was before the watching the press conference. I was doing my research a little bit on Sark, reading articles about him. I remember one particular article interviewed Lane Kiffin, since they both were from USC, and saying how much of a changed man he is since his battle with addiction. And like how the Sark from USC was so much more like big and loud and not to say he isn't now, but just in a real aggressive way back then. And now he's the same way, but he's more he used the word humbled and mature about it. And I think that's a really good sign. And just the way he conducted himself at the press conference too is just, it just looks like he's ready for the moment. And I wrote this down too. He talked a lot about his growth and his maturation, how that has led him to the opportunity to coach again, to be a head coach again at a big program. And he kind of segued that into how he thought about like developing the players and stuff like that. And I'm sure he was talking about personal maturation, but like just the fact that he's talking about developing these young men is just a really good sign for me, because it sounds like he just really wants to see them grow. And I'm sure he's seen a lot of that at Bama and at Washington. Like everywhere he's gone, he's had great development in his players. So I thought that was a really good sign. And I just think his story is very inspiring. And I think he's the perfect guy right now. Also, I want to add that it was just kind of funny, CDC's like inception story, or how they came about to Sark. They were just sitting in a room, three of them, and they were like, "Oh, well, that guy Sark, yeah, you could coach." And there you go. That's how we got him.
I don't buy
I'm sure
that
it wasn't just like that. It's just funny. CDC was hyped that in his intro. He was so excited. I'm sure he'd been up for hours. But yeah, that was just a funny story. But yeah, I'm really excited, and I thought he handled the press conference well. I thought he handled the questions well. Granted, they were all softballs, of course, in the beginning, and he did a whole lot.
Outside of one.
Which one was that?
Maybe we'll get to the Eyes of Texas one.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That was an interesting one.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, other than that, though, he said the whole like, "Hey, we're gonna win. We want to win." And I'm sure Herman said the same thing. But
yeah,
it's just good. It sounded really good from him, and it made me trust him a lot more.
Myers, what you think?
Yeah, I'm glad you started bringing up the the Cali coach vibe and just like the authenticity you get out of Sark. I mean, he mentioned it multiple times throughout the press conference, like authentic relationships with parents, recruits, players, boosters, which is huge because at Texas you got to know what you're walking into, and he seems really aware of it. His sits on his shoulders. He's seen it at USC, which is really encouraging. And but yeah, he's just a guy, like just his personality is you want to cheer for that guy. Kind of like Shaka Smart, Pete Carroll, guys like that. Where like regardless of the football like part of it, like this is just a really likable guy that you're drawn to and you want him to like succeed. And Herman was not like that at all. Herman was like, okay, this guy's like an alpha. Hopefully he can win, but like Sark's a guy that you actually want to like, you really want to like cheer on, like just the person. So that checks the boxes there, because Herman definitely, part of his demise was his personality, and Sark I think will fit well at Texas, way better than Herman. And that's been clear through the press conferences and the interviews that he's done with like ESPN and stuff like that. So yeah, it's good to see that just a good personality fit. And then also going back to the boosters, I mean, I think there was one quote in there, I forget what it is, but like he mentioned about the boosters and how you have to be prepared for a job like this. It's more than just being a football coach. And that's so important because Herman and Strong didn't really, handle that well. I don't know if they didn't expect it or they were just, too dumb or had too big of egos to do it. But yeah, I think Sark, he's already met with the boosters a couple of times on Zooms, which is awesome. He's just kind of – that's a really important relationship you have to have because the boosters will help give you that new facility, they'll help rebuild the bubble, they'll help give you the new stadium, the new end zone, all that good stuff. And they'll help keep you like giving you money to go hire the best coordinators and help keep you employed. And if Herman had the relationship with the boosters like Mac did, he wouldn't have been fired this year, not even close. So – yeah, I think he's definitely, taken the right approach to the job like Texas. And, I don't really read too much into what he says at press conferences, especially the introductory. It's all cliche. Half of it's scripted from like John Bianco to like say this, say that, we're going to lock down the state. But there was one. Yeah.
No, it's the whole like recruiting talent stays in Texas. Like, yeah, I know. Like, I know.
Yeah.
High school coaches, this is your program.
Yeah. The last three coaches have said that, and
right.
So we'll see if they can actually do it. But back to the Eyes of Texas thing, that was cool to see him just go out and support it.
Yeah,
you definitely. I'm sure the boosters were in his ear in that. Like, you got to support it, which that's good. That's our song, and I agree. We got to sing it. So yeah, I'm glad he came out and spoke highly of the song, and I hope that he can get that alignment going with his players where they're all like in unison, singing that song, supporting that song. So. I just don't want it to be like, with Herman, half them supporting it and half not, So hopefully they can all be united on that front. And I think he's the type of guy, the type of personality to get that, unity going. So, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and, break down everything he said, but he checked the boxes and just the personality, he seems like a great fit and he seems like he knows what he's walking into, which is really exciting.
Yeah, he's mentioned quite a few times now. Kind of surprising because Charlie Strong certainly did not do this, and Tom Herman really didn't either. And I guess that was kind of the state of the program when both Strong and Herman came in. But he's said multiple times, like, "Hey, we might win sooner than expected." Like he's hinting that, "Hey, my first year we might be really good," which I certainly dig that confidence. Myers, you're shaking your head. I want to hear what you have to say about that immediately. What are you thinking? Is he jinxing it?
I hope he's right, but we're going to be referencing that when we're losing to Arkansas in the second quarter next year.
Man. I see it already.
Don't make these promises because we get our feelings hurt real quick. So
yeah, man.
I was going to give you a year regardless. You don't have to say this.
Yeah, I was about to say I was going to give you some time, but like
right.
old claims I know.
Yeah, but so. That also might just harken back to just Sark's mantra that he's carrying into Texas, that all gas no brakes mentality. That's something I want us to discuss here because I think everyone kind of has their own interpretation of what that means. Kind of a funny post that I saw on Twitter was some guy being like, "Does this mean that?" We're going to start boat racing teams again and not playing down to our competition. And I hope so. And based on Sark's, what he's done at Alabama these past couple of years from an offensive standpoint, every week's the same week for him. Alabama puts on the same offense. They're not even against the bad teams. I haven't seen them, go super vanilla or anything. It's the same consistent product, which is something that Texas hasn't gotten the past decade. We haven't been able to deliver week by week by week, and hopefully that all gas no brakes ties into that. What do y'all think? All gas no brakes.
I think it really comes down to like what I interpret that as is like preparation, like never really taking a week off, treating every game like it's the championship. And I feel like we struggle with that at Texas, obviously. So yeah, for me, it's just all the preparation. Just go hard every single play, or any mental rep too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to see like a lot of the recruits and players like Deshaun Jameson, JD Coffee have been tweeting that out, and like parents of players, stuff like that. So it's definitely like uniting mantra, and I just hope they can live up to it. So I mean, it's a cool mantra. I like it. I hope it works out. I hope it reflects on the field.
Same.
Last couple things with Sark, and then we'll end this off with a bit of recruiting notes. What do y'all expect to see different? Not just Sark and his staff, but what should we see in the upcoming future Texas football? I guess I'll go ahead and sound off first. Hopefully the rotations have come to a halt. I think that Sark is going to, and he already has done, based off of what he said, he seemed to have done a lot of analysis on this team and watched film, and I think has already kind of identified like what players are good and what players are maybe just kind of not to downgrade on players, but are good guys.
Some players are better than others.
Like a no offense to Kai Money, but a Kai Money or a Cade Brewer or Brendan Schooler. I'm curious if we're going to see a lot less of those guys under the Sarkisian regime, and hopefully see a lot more. Obviously, Bijan's going to get a lot more carries. I mean, that's just facts. What's going to happen? But like in the receiving core, in the tight end core especially, I'm very curious to see. I'm excited to probably see Wiley a lot more. Honestly, like this Sanders guy is really looking good at tight end, and Sark's an offensive mind. I know that we've all been saying, oh, he's going to go over to defense because we need him there. I think he's going to be a star tight end at Texas with Jeff Banks and Sarkisian. But yeah, real quick to wrap up the Sark stuff before we go into recruiting to end this show. Quick thoughts. What do you think is going to be different, just off the top of your head?
Well, what I think will be different is there's no more going to be easing into games or like filling out a team or something. It's just going to be straight energy the whole time, if that makes sense. Like there's no slow starts. And I think that's really what's going to be the main thing. And I'm looking forward to that because Sark doesn't seem like the type of guy to want to just fill out an opponent or take a week off like that. The preparation will lead to fast starts, and that's what I'm really looking forward to. I want to blow people out of the water. So that's the main thing I honestly think is going to be different.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just consistency, really. I mean, the offense, even with Herman, it did show like signs where it was like, dang, it's a good offense. But there were always times where it would just sputter and just look bad, and then Sam would look horrible.
It'd get really stale.
Yeah.
Just weeks where it'd be up, weeks to be down.
And the slow starts, too, like Madrid was saying. So I think we'll get a more consistent product that, features our best talent, like, often. And I think it'll be really friendly to quarterbacks. I mean, he's known for having a quarterback-friendly offense. So I think Casey or Hudson Card, whoever it is, will definitely put up good stats. And I think we'll have a consistent product offensively. Defensively, still kind of to be determined, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I think Coach K is a great hire, and I expect our defense to, force a lot of turnovers and produce draft picks and keep offenses, low scoring, under 35 points a game. So, yeah, I expect just a wholesale upgrade in the coaching. That's what we spent all that money for. I don't want to see us out schemed anymore. Like Gary Patterson just out coaching us, out coaching circles around Tom Herman and stuff. I really hope we don't see that anymore because it was just so frustrating. So that's why you spent all the big bucks. And I expect, we hired some good proven coaches. So I expect to see a well-coached football team that, with a consistent product and beats the teams that we're supposed to beat. And if we do that, I mean, we're going to be in the Big 12 title every year and hopefully the playoff because, the Big 12 is not that tough. I mean, it's really good, but like in terms of talent, it's not as, it's not like the SEC where there's a bunch of like teams with 4 stars and 5 stars everywhere. It's only Oklahoma that's like that. in Texas.
Yep. Final thoughts, Madrid, do you have anything?
No, I'm good.
All right, let's hop into recruiting real quick to round this out. We got a big commitment recently from Amari Winfield. Myers, you seem to know a fair amount about that. Kind of talk about that as well as transition into this new LSU player that we got, Ray Thornton.
Yeah, Armani Winfield, he's a guy that, he's from Louisville, Texas. He's I like him a lot. I think he's a good route runner. He's kind of a balanced receiver. He's he's not slow. He's not too big. He's kind of like in between, which is what I like. I think he's a good fit for Sark's offense. And he kind of took a step back his junior year, but I expect him to have a good senior year. But highly ranked 4-star guy. And, he thought about committing when Quinn Ewers was committed, but he didn't. But, Sark really helped put him over the edge. And he's recruiting other dudes like Malik Murphy, 5-star quarterback, Evan Stewart, the other really highly ranked receiver from Texas. We need to get him badly. So I think Armani Winfield's, a good domino to, start the hopefully the avalanche of commits for 2022. And he's got a good relationship with Quinn Ewers. So hopefully, this may help, get Quinn Ewers looking back at Texas a little more seriously because, you got to get Quinn Ewers. That's priority number one for the 2022 class. So, yeah, I think it's a great pickup. Him and Jalen Gilbo now in the 2022 class, and it's off and running. Hopefully we get another commit soon, maybe Evan Stewart, someone like that. So, yeah, I'm excited, man. Recruiting has life again, which is the most important takeaway from the Armani Winfield commitment.
Nice.
Agreed.
And Ray Thornton, he's a former 4-star linebacker from LSU. He didn't play that much this year for whatever reason. I'm not going to pretend I know that much about Ray Thornton or Thornton, however it's pronounced. But he's from Texas, and he thought about committing to Texas. It seemed like he was going to go to Texas back when he was in high school. It was like kind of an LSU-Texas battle. So he ended up here in the 40 acres. And he's really, just based on like some film and some pictures I've seen of him, he's really built. Like he's really muscular, he looks really athletic. So I think he'll be really good off the edge. We needed more edge rushers badly, especially in Coach K's defense. It's kind of, those linebackers that can put their hand in the dirt and go and rush the quarterback. That's like huge. So I'm excited, man. I've heard some great things about him from like the LSU side, but then again, he didn't play that much this year, which is kind of concerning. So we'll see. Hopefully he can surprise us, but highly ranked 4-star guy. So hopefully Coach K can get the best out of him and we can get some depth there because without Osai, I know we got Marquez Bimage and Prince Dorba, Reese Lato, guys like that, but we're gonna need someone to step up on an edge rushing role, and Ray Thornton could be that guy. Jacoby Jones is also really good too, so we'll see. But we got some bodies there, which is what we need. So it's exciting to see someone, get someone good out of the transfer portal instead of losing all these guys that we've been losing. It seems like it's nice to get one.
Nice. It's good to hear.
Absolutely. Well, that pretty much wraps up our show. You guys have any final thoughts? Do we have about Sark, staff, anything?
I'm
hyped.
It's like 61 days till spring ball or something like that.
Yeah,
March 23rd.
I just want to see him on the field like soon. I'm excited. It's like Christmas.
Spring ball.
Yeah.
Man. Maybe we'll finally have spring ball. It's been a long time. We can actually cover that well like y'all used to back in the day. That'll be exciting. But yeah, I guess that wraps up this show then. It went a little bit long, but obviously had a lot to talk about. Subscribe if you can. Be on the lookout for upcoming videos. We're about to enter some off season, so hopefully we'll have some new creative content that we have for you guys that might even expand a little bit beyond Texas football. Just playing around with a few things, and obviously we're going to continue talking about Sark, this team coming up. The whole quarterback battle is going to be something that I'm sure we'll be talking about and covering as well, kind of talking about who we envision to be the starter and how that's going to go. So a whole bunch of ideas. Comment below if you have any for us or you really want us to talk about a particular topic. We'll take that into consideration. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this show. Be on the lookout for upcoming ones. And horns up, guys. Sarkis.
Have a good week.
All gas, no brakes.